Hey, welcome to the Publish, Promote, Profit podcast with me, Rob Kosberg. Every week, I interview thought leaders and experts who have used a book to grow their income and their impact. So tune in weekly for these interviews so you can learn how to use your own best-selling book and go from hunting for clients and opportunities to instead being the hunted. Hey, welcome everybody. Rob Kosberg here. I have another great episode of the Publish, Promote, Profit podcast. I guess that maybe sound a little arrogant, but I think it's going to be a great episode because I have an awesome guest for you today. Dr. James Stoxen. He's a friend. I've known James for a number of years. He's the president of Team Doctors Treatment Training Center in Chicago, one of the most recognized treatment centers in the world. He's the #1 international best-selling author of The Human Spring Approach to Thoracic Outlet Syndrome. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. James has lectured at medical conferences all over the world. He has been peer-reviewed in 175 different peer-review medical journals. He's given over 1,000 live presentations, lectured at over 70 medical conferences to over 50,000 doctors. You're in the National Fitness Hall of Fame. You've done a lot, and of course, you've written a book that has done some amazing things for your business. One of the things that I love to talk to you about is you've been kind of the working doctor to celebrities, elite entertainers, over 1,000 top celebrity entertainers. You have that giant wall. Of course, you're not in your office right now, but you have that giant wall of all those backstage passes. I love that. Anyway, James, great to have you on the show today. We have a lot to talk about, so welcome, my friend.
Thank you. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I know that's a long introduction and you're traveling, so thanks for taking the time to travel and spend some time with us on the podcast. You've been doing this a long time. You've been in this business for over 20 years, maybe 30 years at this point. You specialize in, and you've written this book on thoracic outlet syndrome. Can you give us like a layman's definition of what that is and how that applies to people, regular everyday type setting?
Well, thoracic outlet is a tunnel that allows the nerves from the neck and the artery from the heart and the vein that pumps blood into the arm. And you have nerves like from the neck that go, under the collarbone and then into the arm. And then you've got the subclavian artery that supplies the blood to the arm. It goes, over the ribs, underneath the collarbone and into the arm.
Okay. And
then you have a vein that drains the blood out. And then what happens is that the neck and the shoulder gets so stiff, Rob, that it literally, like what we have is like a spring system that holds our shoulders up. And, normally you can play football and hit each other really hard with the shoulder and neck, and it could even hurt. And you go back in the huddle and it's no problem because it's built on a spring system. But what happens is that the muscles get so tight in here that the neck muscle pulls the rib cage up into this tunnel, and the muscles of the shoulder from like holding the cell phone too long, it gets tight. It literally drags the shoulder down into the outlet. So you've got the neck muscles pulling the rib up in the outlet, the rib cage. Yep. And then you've got the muscles in the shoulder dragging the shoulder down into the outlet. So it sandwiches it, and it causes an array of symptoms that confuse a lot of doctors. Let's just face it, that thoracic outlet syndrome is one of the most misdiagnosed, also mistreated syndromes of the upper body. And it's just the reason why I wrote the book is because so much computer use, so much cell phone use that this area is just getting too much work.
Yeah, sitting in chairs like this and talking,
leaning back watching TV in the bed, and the neck is getting stiff. And we used to treat neck problems back. I'm 35 years in practice. I became a doctor at 24. And I remember I've never, we would do some soft tissue and then some adjustments, and the guy was good to go. Nowadays, it's absolutely, a patient is no longer a patient. It's a project. The amount of treatment that's required to release this mess in here is more than is available to their insurance policy. In other words, with these really bad cases, it takes me 3.5 hours sometimes just to go through one time with deep tissue to just get the process started, where it used to take, 30 minutes of deep tissue in here, but now it's taken 3.5 hours. And sometimes it takes 25, 30 hours of work on just one side to release the pressure. And also, it's just the muscle tension is so bad that it twists the body into this chronic state of suffering. People try to stretch it out. It just extremely difficult to manage.
Can you give me some examples for the layman of what types of symptoms somebody may be feeling or experiencing that might be, thoracic outlet syndrome?
Thoracic outlet syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what happens is the first symptom is that your neck is stiff, and then you go like this and you're trying to, and sometimes you get a little crack out of it, but each time you do that, you actually pull through these, what we call the scalene muscles, and you lift the rib up even higher. So sometimes you go to doctors and they say, I got this pain in my neck. They really are more like technicians. They're really not very good at analyzing the engineering of the body. And they think of the body as a lever system when it's really an integrated spring. That's the second half of it. And they pull on the neck like this, and then they end up pulling these ribs up even higher. And then, if it gets high enough, if it blocks the vein, you can get a blood clot right here.
Wow.
Under that vein. And if it releases, it goes right into the lung. And when it does, it either kills a part of the lung, which the big problem is you start heavy breathing because part of your lung is dead. And then you're trying to bring in more oxygen to fill the parts that are available, that can bring the oxygen in. But that's when it's really extreme. Now, doctors don't play around with this thing. When you have thoracic outlet syndrome, sometimes they put you on blood thinners to keep the clot from forming. And so it can get pretty serious. There's a lot of MLB players, mostly pitchers, that have had surgery to surgically remove these muscles.
Wow.
And surgically remove the rib and cut some muscles in the chest area to open this up instead of the treatment that, of course, we do that prevents the surgery. So the initial symptom also might be pins and needles or numbness in the pinky finger, the ring finger, because as the rib comes up, it clips off the first nerve at the bottom. And that's this nerve right here. And then as it rises up, it starts affecting, these fingers here. Like, here's an example. I was working backstage for Steely Dan, and the bass player brought this gentleman back. He said, "You've got to help my friend. We were at the sushi restaurant. He couldn't even pick up the plastic top off of the sushi."
Wow.
I said, wow, he's in bad shape. But, Steely Dan, they were upstairs. I was downstairs in the backstage, and I could hear him warming up. And I'm like, I can't wait to see Steely Dan at 8:15, And he goes, here's a project for you. And I'm like, oh, great. A guy with really,
no Steely Dan for you.
complex symptomatology. And, he's got a Rolex on. I don't even know who he is, but obviously, if he's backstage at Steely Dan. So the bottom line is that I asked him one simple question. I said, what's wrong with you? He had no grip strength. He had to open the door by putting pressure on it and turning it like this, by putting pressure on his spinning it. He sold all his recording equipment. He had to move out of his house into his brother's house because he couldn't open the door sometimes. He had to have help, because he can't use his hands, and he was a piano player for Smokey Robinson for 35 years. Okay. Wow. And a studio musician on almost 300 record albums, 35 number one hits. I don't know who he is yet. I'm still talking to him. Yeah. And I said, how did this symptomatology develop? He said, well, I was just leaning back in the chair, waiting for the tour bus to come and take us to the gig. And all of a sudden, I start feeling this tingling here in my fingertips, but it was mostly here, And I said, well, how did it progress? He said, it went this way. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it started on this side and went that way. I said, you do not have diabetic neuropathy. He says, excuse me, doctor, but I've been to the best doctors in the world and they have diagnosed me with diabetic neuropathy. I am diabetic. And I said, look, do you want me to prove it to you? He says, yeah, okay, I'll take that. So I put this towel on his neck and shoulder, and I put this powerful massager that we use, the Vibe Massage.
Yeah.
Massage Assist, from Team Doctor. So it's a powerful massager that vibrates rigorously. And, when you apply the pressure, you can push the inflammation out of the area very quickly, and you can relax those muscles that were pulling on his first rib. So, he's laying on his side. There's about 40 very famous people back there. And the machine makes a noise, so he's trying to talk over the machine. So he yells out, he goes, "My arm is on fire." And I'm like, oh God, because what he's experiencing is all this blood rushing
coming
into
back
his arm for the first time in 5 years, like lots of it, And when you lay on your arm, when you wake up and your arm is like an alien,
Yeah, it's dead.
Like my arm, and then it comes back and then it starts to feel kind of weird, Sometimes it's irritating when blood comes.
No doubt.
He was really irritated. But the last thing you need to do is have the guy scream, "Hey, anything on fire in the theater? My arm!" Because everybody runs out. It's fire.
Right.
So I turned the machine off and I looked down and I said, "Mr. Burke, didn't you say that you couldn't do this before?" I said, "Try that." "Oh my God! I haven't done that in 3 years." I said, "All right.
No kidding.
You want me to continue? Because I'd like to go see Steely Dan." He goes, "No, I could see Steely Dan any day. You keep treating me." And then that was a friendship for life right there.
No kidding.
And he didn't call me right away. I was wondering what's taking him so long. It was like, and then he finally called me because the symptom, the reduction in the grip strength was enough for him. He thought he was cured. I said, "Get in here, And then we finished the job. And so it was one of those stories that you'll never forget. You know what I mean?
Right. I know you travel all over the world working with patients. We were talking maybe a couple of months ago. You were in Dubai and you had a patient that you spent 4 or 5 or 6 days with. And so this is kind of a primary part of your practice at this point, is helping people that have been misdiagnosed in some way or another. And, now they're getting use of their limbs all over again, right? I mean, what must that be like? I mean, I know you've worked with a lot of famous people and celebrities and whatnot, but, truth be told, this is like everybody has this issue. This is not just for people that play the piano or play the guitar, right? I mean, it's anybody that could be sitting in this kind of position. What does that average person do? What can they do to, they're not going to call you and, potentially work with you, although they might, and we'll certainly give them some links for them to do that. But are there some things that they can do on their own? Are there some ways that they can, get some help and see, is this an issue that I have that can be fixed?
Well, the first thing that you should do is find the credible source that describes the symptoms.
Yeah.
And you couldn't have made it easier for me. Obviously, they should read the book.
Right. True.
That's the beginning. I mean, first of all, like I have the book here and, people don't really know how the shoulder is designed. And so they have to understand that the shoulder is designed as an integrated spring system. And in here, I've spent, a lot of money, I invest.
And time. I mean, that's a big book.
I invested in illustrations that are so perfect that they look at them and they say, "I get it. Right. I get it." Because, you can't expect a patient to learn this very complex area, all these rotator cuff and trapezius, pec minor, serratus anterior, and what all these muscles do. And also you can't expect them to understand how this starts as a pain and just circuits around and how they get locked in a state of chronic pain. What is the tripping mechanism that keeps this tension constantly on my body that locks me literally in a state of chronic pain?
Right.
Because that's the answer to getting better, is to find out what's the circuit, what keeps tripping this thing, to keep it every day. Wake up, maybe it'll go away. Now, tomorrow it's there again. It's like 5 years later, it's there again. I have, like we had a patient that we've had some people have acute onset. Like we had a patient in Kansas City. Typically what they do is they just, and then they find my book and then they email me, they friend me, they Facebook text me,
start chasing you.
And it's like 7 things come and they're in a panic. Okay. One lady she was truly in a panic. The muscles got so tight in here that it squeezed down her chest. And also they were real tight in the abdomen, which very few people have that figured out, that the abdomen can get really tight from stress and pull down on the rib cage. And then when the rib cage is pulled down by the abdomen and you can't release your neck because you need to have the abdomen release to get the neck to release. So they kind of do this all the time. They make it worse. And so she called me and she said, I've been in the emergency room 3 times in the last 3 weeks. And because when I can't sleep at night because I can't breathe. And when I wake up, I have shortness of breath. I can't breathe. She's only 34 and she ran in 2 marathons last year.
Wow.
And I said, well, let's get on the phone. I spent about 3 hours with her on the phone. And she said, that's it. I can't come to see you, but I don't know what to do, doctor. And I calmly said, don't worry. I'll just come to you.
Wow.
No problem. You want me to treat you in your living room? We'll take care of it. Knock it out. Don't worry. Well, I'll be there tomorrow.
Wow.
So I actually they wired the funds for the treatment. I went to Kansas City. And I'll never forget it. I was working on it. It was very quiet, because the kids were upstairs. It was very quiet. We were doing this muscle work, And she turned to me and she just started to cry. And, it all kind of messes me up. I got to leave the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she started to cry and she said, I can't believe yesterday I was in total panic. And today you're in my living room.
Wow.
She's looking at me and tears are flowing, Sometimes I'm a tough guy, Rob, but those moments.
That's beautiful.
Go, And the line on the review, this book saved my life. I didn't tell her this, right? This is something that she came up with. And to her, it did, because on that second bout of that real bad chest pain and that restricted breathing, she had contacted her lawyer to set up a will to give her husband all the funds from her account, blah, 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 because she thought she was going down for the count. Things got pretty bad. Things got bad. So when people are having a rough time, you pop up in their living room, like it's Mariah Carey being treated, they just appreciate it a great deal. They just really do appreciate it.
Yeah, I love this. I love this for a couple of reasons. One, this is a good segue for us. I want to talk a little bit about the book and about your practice and how it's kind of expanded your practice. And one of the beautiful things about a book, and obviously, this is what I do and how I help clients and, how I saw even my own businesses explode is, a book is a way to take your knowledge, take your experience, take your magic and transfer that to potentially millions of people and people in countries all over the world. And so that's what you've done. Maybe we could talk a little bit. You very kindly sent me this. No one's ever sent me anything like that before, by the way. You sent me this, before and after the book, this like statistics sheet, which so cool, just amazing. And, I'll maybe go over a couple of these and ask, but in a general sense, tell me, what have you seen? What have you experienced? You gave one story just now about someone that read the book and contacted you, and within a day you were, wired funds and in their living room. Besides that specific story, in a general sense, what have you seen happen to your practice? What have you seen happen in the lives of people from your book?
Well, first of all, there's 2 different components to being a doctor. You are going to be seeing the patients, which is, part of everyone's practice usually. And then you have the scientific component and, lecturing and publishing, editing journals and that kind of thing. So you've got 2 sides to it. Now, let me just pull this little bit of glare. So in that sense, in my case, I wanted to do an international book tour. So what I did was, you were kind of like, hey, are you going to get your book done? And I say, I'm lecturing in Malaysia.
Yeah, I kept pushing you.
And then I got to go to Shenzhen to treat a professional golfer. And then I'm going to, things are crazy in my life, and then I'm going to Sydney to treat this hedge fund manager. And then I'm going to Mooloolaba to treat this Olympic swimmer. And then I'm going to Melbourne to work with the Wiggles or something. And I'll be back in 5 weeks, something like that. So the book just kept getting kicked down the road, And what happens is that you just have to put a stop to it because your other life, because you've got to get your book done, And so I said to myself, I am not going to lecture again until this book is done. And I love lecturing. Okay. Yeah. So I put it on hold. I said, that's it. I am getting this done. I'm not leaving this chair until 2 a.m. every day. I got it done. Okay. So I put the pedal to the metal. In the process, I have developed a folder to put all these emails about lecturing in there, and I'm like, not going to do that and move it in the folder. Okay. So right when I sent Sydney, the final draft in the book was coming out, like the book was actually going to be launched on Amazon. I popped that folder up. It was a weekend. It was like a Saturday night, and I was like 10:30 in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I haven't had like a glass of wine in like a year and a half. I was going to go out. So I then say, well, I could go in that folder and talk. So I sent out emails to about 6 or 8 conference. And I said, are you still offering a lecture, slot? And they said, yes. Okay. So then I went out, and then I came back, and then about 2 days later, the book went number 1 in Australia. And then a couple of days later, went number 1 in United States. So I was talking to your colleague, the one that developed the cover. I forgot his name.
Steve.
Yeah, Steve is great. Steve says, hey, let's go in the back and see what's going on with your book. And he goes, look at that. He's teaching me, your book is number 1. So I'm puffed up, I'm number 1 best-selling author. Okay, I'm not Dr. Stoxen anymore. And so when I got those emails coming back, they said, we have a slot open. But I totally changed my tune, Rob. I'm a best-selling author,
Yeah.
So I say, well, the doctor gets so many, invitations to lecture. And since the book became number 1 bestseller, international bestseller, he's been getting a lot of invitations to lecture.
Right.
And so his advisory team has advised him not to take, lectures unless he's a keynote speaker. Now, if you have a keynote speaking slot available, we will go ahead and take it. And thank you very much. And if not, maybe next year we'll entertain that slot with you next year.
That's great.
Because very busy right now. And I sent those 8 emails out, and I went out a second time, and all of a sudden my phone lit up, and I started looking at emails. I said, well, better get back to the office. Every single one of them said, yes, we had no idea of your eminence, and so on and so forth, these fancy words, And I was thrilled to death because I got 8 keynote speaking slots out of 8.
Wow.
There were 6 of them 5 of them that were within 10 days. So I took 10 days off. I lectured in Turkey, Istanbul, Turkey. And then I flew from Istanbul to Scotland, and 2 days in Scotland, I lectured there. Then I flew to Japan. I lectured in Tokyo and I was there for 3 days. And then I flew to Dubai, where I did a lecture at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then I jumped in a taxi cab and I went to another hotel and I did another lecture at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Wow.
For a group of surgeons, imagine.
Yeah.
And so all those were keynote speeches, and we were blasting them on Facebook, live. And then I was able, when you blast your, lecture live on Facebook, you get 4 hours of content free storage. Then I find out that you can download the lecture later. So
Sure.
Then I had that stored. I don't even need a camera anymore. So then we took those lectures and we edited them really nicely with the PowerPoint slide, because, the screen is sort of blurry. And we made very nice edits of them and put them in a YouTube channel now. And so that's the Thoracic Outlet Syndrome YouTube channel by Team Doctors. And it's just great information, great content. How much better can you get?
Yeah.
You're at a medical conference as the keynote speaker.
Love it.
So content is really great when you can get those assignments to back up your book.
You sent me this statistics before and after the book, and obviously all of them are pretty incredible. You mentioned about the keynotes. Before your book, you had only ever been offered 2 keynote speeches. Since your book, you've now done 50 keynote speeches, or you've been offered.
Invited and offered.
Invited and offered.
And now those were all in the last year, because what happened was I was offered the keynote in 2019 for 2020.
Sure.
And then, of course, what happened then.
Yeah.
Doctors were working on COVID patients. All of the conferences were canceled.
Yeah.
So I got those. And then after I lectured in 2018 with those 5 conferences, I did another lecture in January in Amsterdam, and then another one in Singapore. And so then COVID hit, so here we are.
Yeah.
So
you were offered these as opposed to like breakout rooms. These are keynote speeches and obviously you haven't been doing speeches your entire 35-year career, but certainly the last 5, 10, 15 years. And yet in a year, you've 25x'd, right? From 2 to 50 because of your book, which is amazing. Now, you've also done something very, very different. And I haven't heard of people doing this, which I really love. And I want to talk a little bit about it is, you have been featured in all of these medical journals. You have been appointed to editorial boards. You've even been appointed as editor-in-chief of a medical journal. Literally, from what you sent me, you have these medical journal requests for articles, 0 before the book. Since the book, 31 requests.
Now, wait a minute.
That's TOS. That's the
editors of the medical journal. There were 30 of them. I actually have the copy of the invitation in my website. Okay. So there's no monkey business there. So those invitations are just to write, publish the research on my approach to thoracic outlet syndrome. Those 30. Then there's 170 additional requests from editors to write just anything.
And from 0 before to now, you wrote 192. The statistic you gave me was 192 article requests of any kind.
Okay, it goes up so much that I can't keep.
Yeah, you're getting them all the time, which I imagine you can't even keep up with the requests.
Yeah, it takes 2 hours just to answer the emails for speaking engagements, article requests, journal. It's just, so it's a bit time consuming. But if you want to be looked at credibly, have that side of your practice. You can't just go in and, if you want to be, if someone is worth, $16 billion and they live in the Hamptons on the ocean and they have a concierge doctor, they're going to say, hey, look, we're thinking about bringing this doctor from Chicago in to treat us in our home here in the Hamptons, and what do you think? And then they send your resume over to the concierge doctor to see if he's willing to let you in the team, or if you're working for a baseball team and, a pitcher that makes $12 million. Obviously, they're going to ask the team, what do you think of bringing this doctor in to treat one of our best, multi-million-dollar athletes, or
that's right.
Even somebody like Michael Flatley, who has his legs insured for like something like $40 million. If you want to be a rock star doctor, you want to be at the top. People think that you go to cocktail parties and then you have a martini and they kind of like laugh at your jokes and look at your silly social media and choose you. Nonsense. No, tour managers are extremely serious about who they allow in to see these celebrities. That's why you have no access. Only access is provided by Backstage Pass that is determined by the tour manager or the production manager. So, for sure, they're going to be looking at your credibility on this side from the scientific standpoint, and because they can have anyone they want, and they're paying to fly you in. Yeah. Like the soccer player from India, he'd been after me for a year because he's 17 years old when he became a professional soccer player, mind you, in the minor leagues, but still professional soccer player. And breaking in at age 20, hurt his knee, leaning back with his cell phone, texting and TikToking with his leg up, and he got this thoracic outlet syndrome. It wasn't going away. It was getting worse. Was sort of a sad story. His father got COVID in India and he passed away. And unfortunately, to lose your family, it's got to hurt when you're young like that, no matter what age. Okay. So he contacted me because he read the book, and he not only read the book, but also read everything. Like, people will literally read my book, and then what they'll do is they'll go to the Google reviews. Then they'll actually search those people out that wrote the review on Facebook. Yeah. Friend those people. And that's that former patient of mine. What do you think of this doctor? I'm like, man, they dig deep, because a lot of these people been to 15 different doctors. They're not any better. And they don't want another one to just give them another lost hope. They hope for a cure, and then all of a sudden, nothing. Again, it's like really weighs on you when you can't get, you've 15 doctors, examinations. Oh yeah, we'll be able to help you, and nothing. Okay. So you should really, having those the other side is very important as a doctor. That's what we strive for. So the book has actually helped to, well, I mean, before the book, I had not been in any medical journals, and I'm a chiropractor. Okay. Medical journals, chiropractor. Okay. Now I'm on the editorial board for 36 medical journals. Okay. And I have a friend of mine, who's a very famous doctor. He's regarded as written 50 books, a couple bestsellers. And I just threw something up on Facebook, here's the medical journals that on the editorial advisory board. He calls me up on the phone and he goes, what in the hell are you doing? How did you do that? Okay. Here's another funny story.
Let me mention something before you go into
I don't want to tell too many stories. Go ahead.
No, the stories are beautiful, but they illustrate a point that I think it's important for people to understand. I mean, I talk about something that is applicable. You made it very clear how it's applicable to you and to doctors, but it's applicable to everybody. I call it the hierarchy of desire. And that is, as you grow in your credibility and authority, we talk about a book. We talk about media. You've appeared, of course, on radio, television, podcasts, blogs. You've spoken all over the world, and you've used your book now to get, all these keynote speeches, as well as being appointed to editorial boards, as well as being appointed editor-in-chief, et cetera, things that had never happened before. And what this does is it continues to grow your credibility to the point where when a person that is worth $16 billion wants to bring somebody in, which of course is not a minor investment, right? I mean, you're not going to travel all over the world for, a few $100. This is not like dealing with insurance, like with Medicare or Medicaid, or right? You don't do anything. This is a cash business. If you want to do that as a coach, if you want to be a consultant, obviously, even for someone that is a medical doctor, I don't need to tell you this, Dr. Stoxen, but I know I have a number of very close and personal friends of mine that are doctors that love treating patients but hate being doctors because they have to deal with the insurance companies.
Right.
And so much of their life is tied up dealing with insurance because that's the only way they know to get paid. They're not doing what you did. And so I commend you. I mean, you have become a celebrity in your space. You can still go out to dinner and people aren't going to crowd you like Michael Jordan, right? But in your space, you've become a celebrity, and that means that you command top dollar, and that means that you get to deal with the people that are at the height of their industries. Anyone that's good at what they do can do that. They just have to replicate the parts to it, which, you've done with your book. So congratulations. I think it's fantastic. And your stories illustrate that. I just wanted to mention to other people so they listen with the right ear of how they can replicate what you've done.
Well, you touched upon a very important topic, and that is health insurance. And, I was talking to one of my friends who is, he's an editor of a medical journal, a big one. And then he's also was the doctor for an NBA team, for years. And he's very well regarded surgeon in the East Coast. And he had said that the two insurance companies that were in that area had decided to, swing, go to bat and beat up on these orthopedic surgeons for the paybacks. And he said, I was working like, 12, 14 hours a day before. And then they cut the reimbursement to, like into a third. And I've got a whole team of girls. I don't know if I'm going to make it. I couldn't believe it. Here's this guy who was, like one of the best surgeons on the planet. And so I used to be 100% insurance. Like if we were looking for the insurance patient. Now, I'm just looking for people in need. I removed that whole component. My practice is 100% cash practice. Fee for service is out. I mean, if I have old patients that call me up, come on in. If I'm not busy, I'll treat you. And sometimes I don't bill the insurance and they say, what do I owe you? Don't worry about it. Your money's no good here. Because I'm actually, doing where like the one case, they wired $15,000. I can pay my rent 3 months with that and to fix. So 12, 7,000. So I'm almost 100% insurance free. I have I think I might collect $2,000 from insurance this year at the end, where we used to do 95% insurance. If
like most doctors, right? Most doctors are that way.
And they hate it, the notes that have to be sent in to get paid and, getting the reimbursements cut and having committees that evaluate your practice. And it's just, you know what? I don't have to worry about that. I used to do 20 notes to 75 notes a day. Back when I was 24, I saw 75 patients a day, so crazy. A back adjustment, how's your family? I can't go back to that ever again, right. Leaving all that mess in those bodies. I mean, it's just not. In medicine, you've got the business plan and then you got the treatment plan, and they don't match,
right.
Like 15 minutes for, this is the business plan, 15 minutes, 8 minutes treatment. This is the treatment plan. I told you it's 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. So forget the business plan. We make a new business plan that matches what the patient needs. And that's how it becomes successful.
Love it.
And when people have been to 8 to 12 different doctors, 15 doctors, no improvement, you come in and 5 days later, they're completely pain-free.
Wow.
The tears are flowing, Rob. Their lives are changed. To me, that's my kind of practice. I want those. I've done everything in my life, I mean, have had the $7 million practice. 65 employees. And you know what? The one thing that thrills me the most is the stories, the tears, the changes of the life. If you read some of the Google reviews, they're not like other doctors' reviews. Yeah. Very different. And that is why I'm very happy about it. If we didn't have this book to explain to these people who have lost hope that they can get better, we wouldn't see these people. And unfortunately, their lives would take a different turn. You know what I mean, Rob?
I love it. I love it. I think that's a great way to sum it up. And we've been going a long time, but man, I love your stories. Thank you for taking some time. Where should we send people? Obviously, they can find the book on Amazon. That's right. Easy. But what about, some links to your website, et cetera, where people can get more information about you, Doctor?
Well, it's just very simple. drstoxen.com, STOXEN, drstoxen.com.
Perfect.
And, people will be surprised. You're such a busy doctor. You give me your cell phone and tell you to go. Yeah. Didn't you say you need help?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's my cell phone. I need to talk to people. Yeah. So they can contact me there and email, call me, and I'm very accessible.
Love it. Love it. Dr. Stoxen, thanks. Thanks for taking the time. Honored to work with you. Love to see the stuff that you're doing. So exciting. And like I told you, this would be a fantastic podcast, whether you're in the medical profession or not. And again, you know where to find it's Dr. Stoxen, STOXEN.com, to get any more information. Of course, the book on Amazon. So thank you again for being with us on the Publish, Promote, Profit podcast.
Thank you, Rob, and talk to you again soon. Thank you so much.